How's it going? My name is Brent from ENCORE, and today we are working on a Ford F350. It's a 2023. So what we did do for this one is removed the trim that goes here. It says F350 on it. I also took off this rock guard here at the bottom so that I can wrap into those areas. Terrific. Well, let's go ahead and get started on this. Just gonna get rid of some of this excess here. It's running into that A-pillar and it's holding it off of the paint right here. So let's get rid of some of that. Looks like there's a real minor finger right here. So what I'm gonna go ahead and do is, let's see. I'm gonna tilt this material just a little bit, which will help get rid of that finger there. So just took it and went like that with it, which you can see then put some finger down here, but we'll be able to get rid of that without a problem when we stretch down to that bottom. Well, you can't really see that. Well, hopefully I got that on the GoPro. See, here's the fingers. All right, so let's go ahead and tack this top into place. Looks like we're gonna need a little tack solution. All right, get a little slip on there so the squeegee will glide. Let's go ahead and get some, make sure we don't have any pre-tacking going on. Looks like most of this fender here is going to be really straightforward. Get rid of some of those air pockets, and then let's take a look up here. This is all going to lay down really nice. We are going to have a little stretching to do right in this area here. And then let's kind of check this. Feels like it's already got a little bit of tension on it, so that should be fine to wrap up in. All right, let's go ahead and stretch this down into place first. At least down to below where the trim was on this. All right, and then we'll go ahead and stop right there. Let's get this taken care of up here. That looks like it should all go down real good. All right, let's get rid of a little bit of this excess here. We're going to come back to that in just a minute and put some tack on that. Let's go ahead and squeegee everything out up to the front here. All right, most of this is really straightforward here. Okay, so put a little more slip in here, and then let's go ahead and take care of this part right here. Actually, what I'm going to do right here at the very tip is add a little tack solution, and we're going to pull this into place. We're just going to put just a little bit of stretch on it. Only what we need. Okay. And then for now, we'll go ahead and tack it down on the headlight. Or actually, let's wrap this in a little bit here. Let's do like that. And then we'll see how that works for us coming down here. Actually, nope. Let's not tack it. too far in, because that's creating a finger right here. All right, and we got a little bit of a finger right here, just a tiny bit. We're gonna put just a little bit of stretch on that downward, and then we'll bring all of this slip solution down. I'm gonna put a little tack in there just to make sure nothing moves around once we get this in place. All right, so now, you know, I see in here that there's probably about just a little under 1/4 of an inch in there that we could actually wrap and tack to. So for now, we're just gonna let this dry right here on the paint, and then we'll come back and trim that and then tuck that in. All right, so next is going to be taking care of this top edge, make sure we've got everything down. So we did, you know, have a little bit of lifting right here, which we saw earlier. Not a problem. So I'll just put, let's see if we can do that in a way that makes it easier to see on both cameras. So I just put a little bit of tension on it here, push this down, and then I'm going to use a swipe and hold on there just to make sure that it stays down. Okay, so let's get this pulled back up to right where we ended earlier. And first things first, we're gonna deal with this recess, and then we'll take it down all the way to the bottom. All right, I'm gonna put a little bit of tack down here. Now we don't need to go too far into the bottom, just due to the fact that there is a mud flap that goes on down here that's going to cover all this. So what I was doing right here was just checking. I was holding with my hand right here to make sure that I had some extra material to contour into there while I was giving it just a little bit of a pull down. I didn't want to overstretch into this area down here and make this more difficult to tack down. All right, so some of this we're gonna go ahead and bring this way. Everything that's at this little ridge here, we'll bring it this way. And then we'll take the rest out this direction. So first what we'll do is go ahead and squeegee out the slip solution. And then we'll go ahead and put just a little bit of tack in there. And we'll swipe that down and then hold it with our finger. So it looks like these edges are going to be able to wrap just a little bit, and then some of them I can feel back here that, you know, they could wrap back like an inch, but some of this area doesn't have that possibility, so we'll just have to play that by ear. All right, so let's go ahead and get around this piece of trim here. I don't know, what do you guys want to call that? Keep calling it a piece of trim. I don't know if it's actually called that though. You could tell if I come all the way to this hole that I'm going to have plenty of coverage for this, as well as down here. If we just stay real close to this, we know that we're gonna have full coverage into underneath this piece of trim. So let's go ahead and cut out the excess here. And we don't have to cut it all out. We can actually do this one, cut this one big, and then we'll come back and do a final trim. But mostly what I'm trying to do is get rid of some of the excess material so that I can lift this up easier and make sure that we get this whole recess squeegeed out. All right, so pull that back. We'll put a little bit of slip in there. Well, you can see we've got a little piece. I would say it's hair, but it's not. It's from this cloth back here that does the wheel well. So sometimes when I have a stubborn piece, which that wasn't, I'll use the tip of my blade and kind of pick at it and pull it away. That's a good trick for getting more difficult hairs that have started to, or pieces of lint and stuff that have started to really stick in there. So if you squeegeed all this out and then that was underneath there and then you pull it back, it's gonna just be hard to get out of there because it's gonna be really tacked to the adhesive. So that trick will definitely help with that. Okay. All right, and then we'll go up here a little bit. Kind of just using a couple different techniques here to make sure that we get all of this. I mean, that's a decent little recess real fast. Not so much here as it is in this area here. Let's go ahead and trim a little bit here in this wheel well. That way we can wrap this in. I want to leave it pretty long. And we'll come back and trim it on the inside in a little while later. All right, just want to make sure right to this body line that we've got everything down to that point, and now we'll go ahead and start wrapping this in. All right, let's see. Yeah, we're gonna need to go ahead and put tack in there. All right, so I'm gonna squeegee that part in and then hold that with my thumb. That way it just doesn't keep popping back. All right, so this area, because of how it is, I heard somebody say that. I thought that, I mean, I don't know when I heard somebody say that, but I thought it was pretty funny. We're gonna go ahead and need to put a little stretch on that. If we just try to lay it down, we're gonna get a bunch of excess material right there, and that won't be helpful. So we're gonna put a little stretch on that. Okay, and then let's get this top part down. All right, and then I'm gonna put my finger on that to hold it in place a little bit. All right, just make sure we didn't leave any water in there. So this squeegee is just harder, so you can really put some pressure on it. It's gonna be put a lot more pressure on the material. Again, we've got the mud flap that's going to go in here, or the mud guard, or the rock guard is going to go right on here. So we know that we're going to have a lot of coverage down in here. So these, this little bunched up material isn't going to be a big deal at all. Okay, let's go ahead and move our way up to the front with this now. Okay, and it's starting to get more tension right here, which is okay, but let's go ahead and relieve some of that. Wow. There we go. a little corner here coming up, so we're gonna go ahead and tuck that, push that back down. Just like so. Now that we're down to this line, we'll go ahead and put some more tack solution in there and we'll wrap to the next one. It does look like this fender actually goes up and behind, and I'm not gonna wrap, well, I might wrap to a little bit of that. So let's see what we can do. There are like, feels like 4 little bolts in there, and I don't want to have to cut around those. That seems ridiculous anyway. All right, so sometimes I find it's easier, you know, not just to keep going like this direction all the way around. I'll kind of jump around and maybe push this spot down and then work my way back this direction. So like I'm gonna get that down before, and then I'm gonna work my way up. All right, let's go ahead and take care of this spot. Just gonna add some tack again to this. All right, and then we'll give this a little bit of stretch. Tiny bit wanted to pop up right here, so let's give that a little bit more tack and see if we can just convince that to stay down. All right, now this has had a little bit of time to get stuck down to the paint. Let's go ahead and see what we can do to get this prepared to wrap in there just a little bit. That way our edge isn't right on the edge of the corner here. It's actually in behind the headlight a little bit. Okay. So I'm gonna tack that down to the headlight a little bit just to get some of the slip solution out of there so I can kind of see better what I'm working with. Plus the film won't be sliding around so much. All right, now what I'm going to go ahead and do is trim this material. And I'm going to be cutting it closer, you know, I mean, basically almost riding it up against the headlight. And that'll just give us a tiny bit of wrap into there, and that should be more than enough. Get rid of this excess for now. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and wrap that in. All right, so that's nice. That gets our edge hidden a bit. Let's go ahead and I'm gonna just trim this off at about a 45. Looks like, yeah, there is a little bit to cling on to down there. So we're gonna go ahead and cut this at about, it's not quite a 1/4 inch. It's not quite an 1/8 either. It's kind of in between those two. And let's see. There needs some kind of corner there, because it's not, if you try to push all that underneath, it's gonna just bunch up. All right. We'll get some tack in there. All right, all that feels real good. Let's get this part tacked down. Okay, yeah, I like the way that went. Let's go ahead and see what we can do inside the engine compartment. Okay, so all this can go over about 1/8 of an inch and tack down. And then all the way from here to here, we could be over more like 1/4 of an inch. This corner I'm going to go ahead and cut at a 45 so that it's barely, the material is barely hanging over the edge, and we should be able to get that to stick down without an issue. So another thing that's kind of important, or something that to take a look at, is that we'll actually see which one of these installs is faster and if it's worth it or not. If the time is worth whatever it is that was different about the two installs, or whichever install was faster. I mean, I'm guessing that the kit's going to be faster to install than this, but we don't know that for sure. All right, so now we were just a little bit over 1/8 there, and now we're going to jump up to probably 1/4 of an inch. Let's see, where does that end? So like right here is where that needs to get smaller. So let's go ahead and do that now. And what do we have in there? Yeah, so keep this about 1/8 of an inch all the way up. And then before we try to tuck this down, there's not much on the other side of this to go up against, as far as something to tack there's not much painted surface back there. I'm gonna go ahead and 45 this corner. I don't know if you can see that, but I'm 45 in this corner here. And then we will make a decision about this area in just a little bit. All right, let's get some tack in here and wrap this edge. Okay, let's go ahead and work our way towards the front. So I'm kind of starting on this side of that body line, or that corner on the edge. Let's just call it an edge. I'm kind of starting a little bit on this side of the edge and then wrapping in. So this part stays on this side, and I'm actually bending the card, and so as you can see, I'm actually touching the top a little bit, and then we're just wrapping that in. The other thing you could do is kind of just make a squeegee like this. Make sure, make sure that you have absolutely everything off the very corner then, and then we'll just go for a little bit more. All right, that feels good. Let's check out this edge. That's gonna go down really well with just a tiny bit of heat on it. Okay, that looks really good. All right. Oh, yeah, there's at least the 1/8 inch back there to wrap around and stick to. Let's go ahead and so we'll just leave this just about an 1/8 inch over. So just a real minor overhang here. Okay. And then on this corner, we're gonna go ahead and do a little bit of a 45, but I am gonna leave a little bit more hanging over the very corner so that we can wrap that in like that with a little bit of heat. Okay, this should be interesting right here. I'm gonna go ahead and leave it just a little bit long, and then we'll see if it wraps in at all. I don't know what it's gonna stick to down in there. It's not much in there. All right, let's pull this out of that. It's kind of already tucked in there a little bit. Let's pull that out. And we'll go ahead and trim this the rest of the way off. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna keep, this hand's bumping into the door, so I'm gonna go ahead into the mirror. I'm gonna go ahead and come in this way. And actually, let's trim up like that, and then we'll be able to pull this away from the A-pillar while we cut. All right, so on this corner, same thing. 45, and then let's see what we've got back in here to wrap and tuck to. Decent. Let's see. Yeah, like quite a bit actually. So this top doesn't have much to stick to, so we'll stay real close, about that 1/8 of an inch over, and then we'll go a little wider for the rest of this. All right, we'll wrap this in. Feels good. All right, like I was saying before, we're just gonna stay real close to the open parts on the fender, and that'll make certain that we have good coverage. Go ahead and peel that back. All right, go ahead and tack that down again. Just make sure that all of this is squeegeed out and stuffed down. Sometimes when you pull back, when you tear that back off, sometimes when you tear the material on your cut line, you can actually lift it up a little bit. So let's just make sure that this edge is stuck down real good. All right, let's see what we've got going on here. So there is just one section in here that has quite a bit to stick to, but so we're just gonna cut all this the same because that's not worth messing with. So we're gonna cut all this at about 1/8 inch over and then wrap this in. So for me, I guess I would say that the biggest difference between what the computer's gonna cut and what I'm gonna cut is that I get to decide everything. I get to decide what it covers, what I don't cover, how much I wanna wrap. Somebody didn't already decide that for me. Sometimes I'll cut the patterns out and I can't believe some of the stuff they won't cover, although sometimes I'm super impressed by the pattern on how much it does cover. But, you know, I know that I want to wrap this into right here, so it's just customization that I get to do. But we will see, you know, what the sacrifice is time-wise. I also, you know, I had to take time taking these parts off. We'll see if the core kit cuts around those or what exactly happens with those. We've got a lot of this tacked in here as well. We're going to go ahead and come across the bottom and then we'll take care of this wheel well. Alright, so you could cut this off way back there, although that seems unnecessary due to the fact that it's got a cover that goes over this area. Alright, so let's go ahead and make sure this edge is all down. It's also hanging over just right here a bit that's still not pushed down. Alright, good stuff. Now we're going to go ahead and move around to the wheel well. So I'm basically just kind of going right up against this line. I don't want to go over the line. I am going up to it, and then no more than like a 1/16 of an inch or so away into the painted area. This fender from the stamping has a few little like wrinkles in it, and so let's get that completely squeegeed out. Alright, this hole here is where one of the screws goes through to hold on the mud flap, so we're going to go ahead and come across right above it and take our way down. And then we need to stay on the painted surface here. There's nothing to tuck to behind this as far as wrapping it in. Okay. So a lot of times you'll see me there when I start to tear that first edge, I move real fast like that to break that loose. I found that to be a good practice, you know, a good way to get that to start tearing. With pulling, that also helps the film not pull up so much, because if you go real slow, you know, you can start pulling it off right where it's already tacked. If you go real fast, I've just found that that helps with that situation as well. Alright, so it looks like we could actually cut this with about 1/8 of an inch hanging over, and it's got some painted surface to stick to back there to help hide this even more. Alright, and then once we get down to here, it doesn't have that anymore. Alright. So we're going to take this just past that edge and around to the back side of the fender. All right, I don't mind doing that at all, actually. It would have been nice to have done that the whole way around, because then you don't see an edge in here in this wheel well at all. But mine, you are going to see this very edge until you get to here. So, all right, so that was the process of bulking this fender. If you found anything useful or helpful, please like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.